Hey guys, Ryan here with Profit Roadmap. Before we talk to Matt Green with Blue Duck Lawn Care today, I wanted to take a second to introduce you to my co-host for this episode, Dan, who's a longtime member here at Service Autopilot. Dan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. This is so exciting. It was really fun to be part of this, and I'll just give you a little backstory. I live in Southern California. I've been with Service Autopilot since about 2021, and I'm on the marketing team. Do a lot of the writing of things, so like writing blogs, email, that sort of thing. And honestly, I love this business. I love our customers and our clients, and we have such a cool community of folks that serve their communities, and that's been really a fun thing to help see a lot of these businesses reach that next level. And I've been a fan of the podcast and worked kind of behind the scenes for a while, so it's fun to hop on and be on the camera and chat with some folks.
Absolutely, man. Super excited to have you here. You bring a lot of talent and passion to it, so it's going to be a pretty awesome episode. In this one, we got a chance to talk to Matt Green, again, owner of Blue Duck Lawn Care, and we talked a lot about niching down into your services and really building the experience based on that. That can be sort of a controversial take sometimes, where it's like, well, I want to offer as many things as possible, cast as wide a net. But with Matt, he was able to pare those things down and really, really hyper specialize in the areas that work for him and for his team. There's a cultural aspect to it as well. But it was a super, super awesome conversation. I was super glad to have Matt. I've spoken with him before. He's just an awesome guy. So anyway, I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun to shoot. Dan, thanks for jumping on with me and co-hosting. Let's go talk to Matt. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Profit Roadmap podcast. Today we're joined by Matt Green with Blue Duck Lawn Care. We're going to talk about how to grow your business by scaling your service offerings back, streamlining to become more efficient. So Matt, super glad to have you on today. Dan, you're joining us today for the first time as a co-host. Super excited to have you here. So, Matt, how's it going? It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's great. Can't complain too much. It's been a fruitful year, that's for sure. It's been great. Last year really sucked. This year has been awesome.
Well, I hope the fruits of last year are coming to bear this year. Hopefully that's what that is for you. And I hope it continues.
A little bit of both.
Well, Dan, how about you? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to learn about the Blue Duck, because this is like, we've had a lot of cool guests on the show. None of them have had a name this cool. And Matt, I'd love to hear, before we get real deep in the weeds, pardon the pun, your backstory, how you came to where you are today, and kind of the provenance of where Blue Duck came from.
Yeah. So my backstory is, we started in the lawn care space when I was 9 years old. We were super poor. My dad came down with multiple sclerosis. He ended up passing away from multiple sclerosis. But because of that, he wasn't able to hold a typical job. And so I'm the youngest of three boys. We were going through kind of our teenage years, and we happened to be walking. So my mom, she grew up on a farm. She knew nothing but hard work and grit her whole life. She didn't, maybe this is not fair to say, but growing up on a farm, you don't typically know how to use your brains as much to make, to scale and make money. You know how to work harder, and the harder you work, the more hours you put in, the more money you can make, because you work typically as an hourly thing. So with that background of just being on a farm and hard work, she worked as a retail manager, like some big department stores. And back then, I don't think that they ever really crested $40,000, and trying to raise three teenage boys on that is it's very tough, And so there was months where we didn't have the electricity on, or we didn't have the water on, and it would vice versa. Rob Peter to pay Paul. One month you have this on, one month you have that on, and so that humbled us for sure. Taught us, like, hey, nothing's going to be given to you, but you better figure it out, and you better work for it if you want something in life. And so we were walking down the street one day, and we saw somebody mowing lawns, and like they had this whole setup. It was a truck and trailer and all these mowers on it. We were like, this is interesting. We could maybe do this, And so we started off. We printed out flyers, and one summer we got up to like 75 yards a week. It was crazy.
Whoa.
And this was like the second or third year we were into this thing. I mean, we started off with my mom's, it was like a Chevy Celebrity station wagon. And we would put the mowers in the back of this thing. And like, I tell people they don't believe me at all, but our first weed eater, I'm sure you guys know what a weed eater is. Our first weed eater was actually a pair of scissors. And one of our jobs is to walk around the perimeter with this pair of scissors and do all the trimming. And we didn't have enough money for a blower, so we just used a broom at first. And then one of our customers felt so bad for us, they gave us their electric corded, weed eater. And so that was great until the string ran out. We didn't know we had to put new string in it, so we didn't have money for that. So we went back to the hand shear thing. And over time, life changed. It was crazy. Like we were able to go on vacation again. We were able to do these things again. We no longer had to eat spam and hot dogs and baked beans every night for dinner. We got to do things, and it just opened up our eyes of like, wow, we can do this and make. At that time, it was like serious money. Like it changed how we operated, and there was a lot of that stuff. So, long story short, not to bore everybody on here, but that taught us a ton. But when I was going through high school, they taught everybody that, if you don't go to college, you're a loser. That was pretty much high school growing up. And I don't know that they have that same, message to middle and high school students anymore. At least I sure hope they don't.
Yeah, they had it about 10 years ago.
But the trades, I mean, there's people in trades that are making significant money.
Yeah.
And so I hope that they are talking about how valuable the trades are now in school. But so they said, hey, if you don't go to school, you're a loser, college. So I ended up leaving what we knew, went to college. I have 2 college degrees. Never really used them of any significance. Had a couple sales jobs. I worked for a Fortune 100 company in sales, selling software and copiers. I worked for Xerox at the time. And they taught us business. Well, what I thought was business was really sales training. And so from there, I was like, you know what? I feel like I just had this itch. I feel like I could go back. Now, I lived in Ohio at the time. It's like, I feel like I could go back to Indiana, back where I'm from, and I bet I could start a lawn care company and just destroy everybody. Because I had this, Fortune 100 business training that I thought it was, but it was really just sales training. And so my thought back then was that lawn care people are idiots. They have no brains. They just mow grass, and that's about all that they're worth. But they have no business knowledge behind anything that they do. And so I was like, I bet I could apply this business knowledge to this thing, and I bet I could just destroy everybody. And so that's what brought me back into the lawn care space. We started, this is our 8th year in business. From that, I'm going to go destroy all these people kind of thought. And then I get into the space, and it's easy to rise to the top 10% in a market. Just answer your phone. If you can just answer your phone and do what you say you're going to do, you're already a top 10 in the lawn care space. But that top 10% are very business savvy people. There's a lot of really, really smart people in lawn care. And I had no idea about this at the time. I mean, you have multi-billion-dollar companies in our space. These are significant companies that are very sophisticated. And so, we started with what we knew. We did lawn mowing, lawn maintenance, all that kind of stuff, leaf removal, snow removal, all that kind of stuff. And then right around COVID, we decided, we're going to flip this thing on its head. We don't really like the trajectory of the business. So we grew to $1 million in the first 5 years. So we hit the $1 million mark in 5 years, which is kind of every entrepreneur's milestone. They're like, man, if I hit $1 million,
you
I'm
should
going
get a
to
plaque
be
for
rich,
that,
Yeah. And it's like, man, you hit the $1 million mark, and you're just like, man, I feel like I've done nothing. I have no money to my name. I have nothing to say for this other than a lot of heartache and struggle, And then we decided to totally switch and start taking on more profitable services and hire consultants and things like people to teach you real business. Like I said, I thought I was getting taught business back then by Xerox. What I was really being taught was just sales training. And everything that they had was already profitable. We just had to go sell it at this this mark. They told us what we could sell these products at. And so if we sold it at that, they already knew that they were making money. For me, I'm setting my own prices. And at that time, I had no idea whether I was making money or not. It sounded like a lot of money. But at the end of the day, when you pay all this stuff, you're like, man, I have no money left, And so then you hire the consultants and they teach you, like, this is how you understand your numbers. This is how you figure out how to, recover your overhead. And this is how you figure out what your costs were. Like, I literally talked to somebody, both of you probably know the industry name, big name consultant, well known around Service Autopilot. And he said something about cost of goods sold. It's something you guys probably take for granted. People probably talk about that often. I had never heard of that term. That was like 3 years into my business. I was like, what is a cost?
That's a big one.
Yeah, it was like, I had no idea. I didn't know what a cost of goods sold was. I was like, what does this even do? Oh, this is this number, this number. I was like, yeah, well, what does that mean? Is that good? I literally had no idea, And so that was like life-changing, like learning some basic financial sense. I'm a quick start, so I just jump into things. Like, had I known how complicated business was, maybe I wouldn't have done it, And now it's like, man, you're so deep into it, you just got to figure it out and keep going. There's a lot of families that rely on us. There's a lot of, not just our employee families, but customer families that rely on us. So it's like, you can't just throw in the towel, Some days you feel like, let's just throw in the towel. And other days you're like, man, I feel like I'm top of the world, kind of thing. And it's just one of those kind of things of being an entrepreneur. So that's kind of our backstory. And so then we pivoted and decided we wanted to start something that we could pay better, we could offer benefits, we could, there's more margin to this. So we literally threw away $1 million worth of revenue. It started all new service lines. And so that was 3 years ago, maybe. And this year we should be really close to $2 million.
Well, awesome. Congratulations on that, man. It's been a hell of a journey.
It's been a whirlwind, that's for sure.
Absolutely. You said you're a quick start. You talked about the Colby test?
Yeah.
I'm a fact finder.
So I'm not technically a quick start. I'm a 6 in quick start, but I'm a 7 in fact finder. So I'm like a fact finding quick start.
Yeah, that's a decent combo.
Yeah.
But for anybody listening, it's not familiar with the Colby test. It's basically I hesitate to say personality test, but it sort of gives you some insight in the way that it's how you're wired. It's basically like, it tells you how you operate. It's super cool. We'll make sure we put something down in the show notes for it, so that way you can look at it.
Yeah, if you're interested in Colby, you should definitely talk to somebody that's much more qualified than I am to talk about.
It gets deep.
But it's how you operate. So like, this was also crazy. I had an employee, and since I could go from this project to this project, and I can move back and forth, and it won't frustrate me. But he was very much a follow through. And so he was like a 9 in follow through. So he knew what his list was for the day. And he knew, like, hey, I can get through this list at 4:30 and I'll go home. Like, he's already made his plans. And so sometimes in the middle of the day, I'd be like, hey, I need you to come help on this landscape project. We promised the customer it would be done today. And so it throws up this whole day. And he would get so mad and frustrated and like, just, you might as well just not even ask him to even come to work that day. I mean, that's how like visibly mad and like, is terrible. And then I learned about the Colby score, and I understood that, hey, this is just how this guy is. So you give him his route, and he's great. He'll do his route. He'll go home. Customers liked him. But if you threw a wrench into that thing, you might as well just set off the time bomb, And so that Colby score taught me, like, hey, this is just how this guy's wired. Like, by you asking him to do that, like, you're asking for it. You know how this guy operates. Let him operate that way, and you'll be good. So, yeah, Colby's awesome.
Yeah, it comes up when a lot of times we talk to people in the service autopilot realm. It comes up. It's always super, super cool. But my thought process on it, like, it helps you find the right person for the seat on the bus that you need him to be in. Super cool stuff. Anyway, a little bit of tangent there. You mentioned that is around COVID that you guys decided to, you said, flip it on its head. Was that when you guys decided to start scaling back on some of your services instead of expanding them? Or
well, it was actually right before COVID. Somebody that's not in the industry anymore, I call him a mentor. He probably would never think of that because he never was able to get his business really off the ground and fruitful. But he said, told me one day, he said, Matt, if you ever want to do anything of significance, he said, pick 3 services and 3 services only, and right off into the sunset. But if you have more than 3 service lines, he said, you'll never be successful. He said, look at the top 100 list. Not very many of them offer absolutely everything. And most of the top 100 list are big commercial companies, and they have enough where they pretty much have somebody that can own every single division, And he goes, Matt, you're too small to have so you own all the divisions. And so he goes, I want you to count up every single service line you have. And at the time it was like 20, we offered 23 different services.
That's a lot of services, man.
He goes, most of these things are a massive distraction to you. And let's say you have 20% profit. Most people would die to have a 20% profit at the end of the year. He said, let's even make it even better. Let's say you have a 30% net profit at the very end of the year. He goes, that means you have a very little bit of money to actually spend towards each service line to improve it. He goes, but if you have 3, now you can essentially spend 10% profit on every single service, and you can make it exponentially better every single year, and you can deliver such an amazing service to all your clients that you will pretty much have the Chick-fil-A method of just delivering an amazing experience, and then people will come. And something he said, it just stuck with me. And I was like, I think that's the next way to go. And so we were like, so I wrote down every single service we did and how much money we made on each one. And it was just like, we're not doing this one anymore. We're not doing this one anymore. We're not doing this one anymore. Just because a customer asks you if you could do it, I'm sure you can. Doesn't mean you should be doing it, And it sometimes you just got to bang your head against the wall enough times and somebody to say that at the right time for you to realize, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be doing all that stuff. Maybe we should scale back to the things that we like doing, we're good at doing, we can deliver really well, that offer a good profit, and let's move forward with those things, So now when somebody asks us to do something that we used to do, we just say, I'm sorry, we can't do that anymore. We have other partner people that we can refer you to, and they'd be more than happy to help you. But that's not something we do.
Was that a you said you went through your services and pared them down based on their profitability. I mean, was it pretty cut and dry what had to go? Did you factor in, I want to know kind of what went into the thought process there, because one of the things that you mentioned was like the services you like doing, right? Was there maybe a scenario where it was like, you guys really like doing this, it's not super profitable, at least not right now? Maybe you kept it because it was something that was enjoyable, or was it all by the numbers? How'd you guys play that?
Most of them, okay, so let's say you're $1 million business, right? Some of the services were like, of the $1 million, they generated like $7,000 a year. Like some type of drainage thing. It was like super one-off thing,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And so it's like, okay, 7,000 out of $1 million, like, that's not worth it. Just, it's gone, So anything that was like really low revenue-wise just automatically got rid of. And then it came down to, what do the guys hate doing the most? Because at the end of the day, your biggest client are your internal clients. They're your employees. And if your employees don't like doing the work that they're doing, then they're sure is not going to stick around. Like, why do you think this industry has a huge turnover problem? Because, like, they're doing all the stuff that maybe they just hate doing also. So if you want to have a great culture, you need to figure out what the guys that you have and girls that you have, what do they actually like to do? And if they like to do it and they work for a good company and they're getting paid well, like, they're probably going to stick around for a while. Like, our team has been here for a while. Like, our techs on average are here for 5 years. I mean, that's kind of unheard of, But they like being here. They get paid well. They like the work that they do. They hated snow removal because it was, you get up at 2 a.m. to go do a salt round. Well, that kind of screws up people's sleep schedules. Like, they don't want to do that. Leaf removal, like, it's cool the first couple of weeks when the leaves are moving really easy, but then it gets into the rainy season. It starts raining and it gets really cold. Well, they don't want to stand out there blowing leaves when it's freezing cold and raining on them. But sometimes you had to do that. We were very profitable at lawn mowing, which most people aren't very profitable at. Usually people use mowing as like a foot in the door thing, but we had a really tight route. So we were very profitable doing lawn mowing. So that one was kind of hard to get rid of, but it's an employee turnover thing. Like, it's hard to get people to stay on that for a long time. So we had a lot of turnover in that. So it became a scheduling nightmare. So we're like, all right, that one's gone. Even though it was profitable, scheduling nightmare, because you have to be out there every single week on the same day. Because customers expect you to be there on Wednesday because they got to help with their gate open or whatever. They expect you to be there, so you had to be there. Well, what if somebody calls off? What if somebody gets sick? Like, there's not enough money in it to have all these extra people just as backups to fill in. And so that's why we moved into like fertilization, weed control, and pest control, because we don't really have to tell you when we're coming out. I mean, we'll send you a message a day or two beforehand, like, hey, we're coming out in the next couple of days. But if somebody's sick, we just don't send out the notifications for the next day. And the customer has no idea. So that's how we came about. And then COVID hit, and the world kind of shut down. But in Indiana, pest control was always an essential service. So we knew we wanted to do pest control because, like, I still had bills, my team still had bills. So we didn't want to get shut down. And pest control was an essential service. So they couldn't shut us down with pest control. But then we wanted to get into fertilization, weed control, because we had we thought we had a lot of the clientele already, from all the other services that we had sold. So then we put pest control services in our fertilization program. So now our fertilization program has an essential service because we have pest control products in there. So now we have 2 essential services. And then we decided to throw on Christmas lights because Christmas lights is super profitable. And so that's what we do in the wintertime now, instead of snow removal, to keep our guys year round. So now in a very seasonal market here, our guys might have 2 weeks off in the wintertime and they love it, and then we're right back into training and fertilizing again.
Awesome.
So like, we don't have a lot of layoffs, like most of the big companies do.
Yeah. Matt, let me ask you this. There's a problem I see with a lot of entrepreneurs, and this definitely is in the service industries, but transcends that to a lot of startups and even restaurants. I think there's this modality where they want to chase money, right? So it's like, oh, if my customer asks for this service, can I do it? And then I'll get paid. And they don't really check into those numbers. And even if they do check those numbers, that if you're kind of getting there by your own grit, it's hard to say no to that extra paycheck. What was that like for you guys? Because I'm sure there was things you had to say no to that in the short run cost you money, but you knew long term you could make more money. But what did all that feel like for you and your team?
Yeah, it's definitely a mindset shift. One of my mentors, JP, which you guys might both know. I don't know when you guys came to the company, but JP.
Yep.
So, I used to be in academy when he was leading this, and one day he's like, we're talking about how to scale the company, and he said, when you're a one-man band and you go out into the field and you do something, you just move to the company 100% because you went out and you physically did something. So you took it from 0 to 100%. Then when you get 10 team members, if you go out in the field as the owner, you move the needle 0.1% or 1/10 because there's 10 people out there. But if you make a policy change or an SOP that applies to all 10 people, now you just move to the company 100%. And it was that kind of a mindset to me. And I was like, that was kind of like, that's interesting thought concept. I've never really thought about that. Because like I was raised from somebody that was raised on a farm. The harder I worked, the more I could push. It was never like, how do I use my brain more to impact people to get them to do their job better? So when you start taking on all these one-off jobs, guess who has to go do that 9 times out of 10? The owner does. Because none of the other people on your team have any idea how to do that. So by you going and chasing $4,000, really $4,000, how much is $4,000 in the grand scheme of, a couple $1 million company? It's insignificant. But you just spent your time, because no one else knows how to do this, to go out and make $4,000, and you just moved your company 0.1% kind of thing. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's a waste of your time to go try and make $4,000. And so we partner on our Christmas light side there's a lot of landscape contractors, like big commercial guys. And sometimes these HOA contracts or whatever, they're $100,000 to $300,000 contracts. They're big contracts. And so they got all the mowing and the, all the maintenance stuff on the green side, irrigation, mowing, trimming, mulch, whatever you name it. And Christmas lights are becoming a thing. And so they want all their entrances decorated. And so if you want that $300,000 contract, they tell you as a landscaper, you have to go do the Christmas lights. Well, none of your team really knows how to do Christmas lights. You might have 300 team members. And so your focus should be on training those 300 people to be really good at the maintenance, the cleanup, the mowing, all that stuff, right? And so if you have to go do this $2,000, $3,000 Christmas light install on their entrance, does it really make any sense for you to send one of those 300 people out to go do that? No, like they need to be doing stuff that they're efficient at. So who gets stuck doing that? The owner does, or an operations manager, or the account manager that sold the job. Somebody that should not be doing that work. So we partner now with a lot of commercial landscaping companies that have to do these Christmas light installs that makes zero sense for them to be doing. They just pay us as a subcontractor to go do it for them. So now they can focus on training their team to do all the cleanups and the cutbacks and all that kind of stuff. In the fall, you're racing against snowfall here. You're racing against weather. And so you got to get all these cleanups and all this stuff done on these commercial properties as fast as possible because you don't know when the weather is going to change. So now you're trying to do all that. You're trying to do Christmas light installs. And it's just so that was a very roundabout way to explain that it's a total waste of time to be chasing these one-off things, even though you can make a little bit of money on it, pad your pocket a little bit, but it doesn't move your company forward, not at all.
Gotcha. The mentality there is that basically that while you could make a couple extra bucks doing that thing, if you really just get really good at this one thing, that's going to be an exponential return as opposed to the $4,000 or $7,000 payment. Is that sort of the mentality that drives behind that?
We have been doing. This is going to be our 4th year doing fertilization and weed control, or maybe 5th year, 4th or 5th year doing it. But this is the first year that it's all we have done. Like the first year we did fertilization weed control, we were still mowing and we were still doing all these different things. And then we got rid of some services, but we still maybe mowed the next year and we still did mulch. And, we did all these services and fertilization was just one of them. Even though we tried to focus the most on fertilization weed control, we still did these other services. And fertilization just kind of grew, just kind of, just a little bit every year. And then this year, this is the first year, 2025, that we haven't mulched, we haven't mowed, we haven't done any of the, we are totally made our full pivot. And so we have had zero distractions in the spring. And we have grown over 100% our client count this year. Over 100%. By the end of the year,
that's nuts.
From the start of last year to the end of this year, we should almost be 4 times the size of client count just for fertilization weed control. And that is the power of focusing on one thing and getting really good at one thing and not letting other things be a distraction and spending all your time training your people to know how to speak to this specific customer. These are the questions you're going to get. This is how you answer this thing. If you have 20 services and I'm trying to teach you as a CSR how to respond to all these different questions for this service and this service, because every single service has their own FAQs. And now you got to learn 23 different FAQs and there's 10 different FAQs minimum for every single service. How do you expect anybody to be good at that? But, the beauty of for us is we do fertilization, we control, we do pest control, we do Christmas lights. So fertilization season, we're not getting a ton of pest control calls. So our CSRs, we only talk about fertilization. Once we get to the warmer months, we get to the summertime, people start seeing more pest problems because it's warming up. Then we start doing all of our training on pest control. And then once both of those seasons are over, once we get to the fall, winter, we start talking about Christmas lights. Nobody's signing up for fertilization or pest control during Christmas light season. So all we do is train on Christmas lights. So all of the seasons have been very strategic. So we can, like the sales seasons, all we talk about we do weekly trainings for our CSRs. Every single week we spend a minimum of an hour on the phone call training CSRs. How do you talk? These are the problems are gonna arise this week. This is what's happening. These are how you answer these phone calls. Yada 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 yada. And I can't tell you how incredible that has been when you can get the focus on just one thing and get really, really, really good at one service, as opposed to trying to be a jack of all trades, master of none.
How did the team react to that? I know you're really big about the team and culture and built everybody up. When you were like, "Hey guys, we're not going to do mowing anymore," I mean, I imagine it wasn't like a light switch moment where you're like, "Mowing's done. We're just October 1st, never again." What
It
was that
kind of
process like?
was.
Was it really? Oh my gosh! Tell me a little bit. How did that go? And yeah, but I also want to know how the team reacted because I could see that being a very polarizing decision.
Um, Actually, most of the team loved it.
That's good. Okay. My fear would have been like the pessimist in me would have been like, someone's going to be like, this is doom and gloom. And like,
Well,
but
some people definitely are worried about their jobs, worried about their pay.
yeah,
But I've never. Okay, so to step back from that, for have an out of body experience for a second, I've never lived in their shoes before. I've never been on that side of the paycheck. I've always been the one writing the paychecks. I will always count on myself to perform. And they might be new to me, so they might not understand my drive, but I'm going to win. I'm a competitive person. Like I'm not going to fail. And so for me, being able to cut off the service and figuring it out, that's just who I am. That's just how I'm wired. But for them, they might be a lot more of a conservative person. They want to see the plan of all this. I'm like, no, just rip the band-aid off. I'll be honest with you, I didn't necessarily have a master plan on it. I know that we were going to cut it off, so let's just rip the band-aid off. Let's just get through the pain as fast as possible, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. If we got to sell some more random stuff, we will to make it make sense in the meantime. But like, there was no necessarily huge master plan of this how it is. It's like we're getting rid of it. Let's just rip the band-aid off and move forward. But we've never missed payroll, and we never will.
that's awesome. I love that a lot. I love that a lot. It's a heck of an approach. So was it like you just picked a day and stopped doing it? You said you wiped out like it was almost $1 million in
Yeah, it was $1
revenue
million
doing
in
that.
revenue. Yeah, now that wasn't $1 million overnight. We phased out certain services, and we kept like we kept mulch the longest because we did the most revenue in mulch we did the most revenue in mowing total, but then it was mulch was second. So we got rid of mowing one year, gave them to a partner client of a partner company of ours. They refer all their fertilization weed control to us now. But we gave that to them. Everything else, we actually never even told the customers that we weren't doing it anymore. We just didn't send out the marketing the following year. I mean, a couple people would call us and say, "Hey, are you doing leads this year?" No, sorry, you can call these guys over here. We're not doing that service anymore. But we are doing Christmas lights. If you want Christmas lights, that's the new service we're doing. And so, but yeah, we did kind of strategically get rid of certain services at certain times just based on how much revenue. Like we didn't want to throw away all of it at once. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I want to come back to one little thing on training. So this is really cool in that even though you're having multiple offerings, you're only offering one at a time, basically to your customers. And so it seems like your team can get a lot of confidence. You talked a little bit about doing some of those sales drills. What does training look like for your guys out in the field?
I kind of can answer that, kind of can't answer that because I'm not over that. Our operations manager, he manages the guys in the field, so I stay away from it. I get myself in trouble when I start putting my foot into things that I shouldn't. I have trust in him. He's been with me for 5 years or so. He knows what he's doing. His guys perform. They get a lot of 5-star reviews. So I let him do his thing. I can tell you though that we like to start people for field training. So we like to hire people around aeration season. So when we aerate, we have to hire on seasonal people. Aeration for us happens mid-August, mid-August to mid-October. And aeration is not an easy service. I mean, you're potentially pushing around heavy equipment sometimes. It's long days. It's not an easy service to do. And so we hire them at that time. So we might hire 6 to 8 people. And so then of those, we know that some of them are going to quit. They're just not going to pan out to be able to do the physical aspect of the job. So they start in that season. And if they make it past aeration season, they become a Christmas light installer. And you have to climb roofs and all that kind of stuff. Okay, cool. You made it through that. Now I know that you're probably going to stay with us long term because you just went through the hardest services that we got. Then we will invest the time to train you on fertilization and weed control. And so they have to be licensed by the state. And so they will go, we start training either the second or third week of February. It's a minimum of a full week worth of training in our office, in our warehouse here. So we will retrain all of our techs every year, all the new techs. They will then ride with technicians that have been doing it for a while, so they'll understand what it's like. And then they will sit for their test, so then they have to pass the state exam. Now, the state exam, they've changed it a little bit where you don't technically have to pass the test anymore. You can go and sit in a class for 8 hours and you can pass. And they did this because the guy that kind of oversees it, he doesn't understand how to recruit and he couldn't find talent. And so he lobbied to get the requirements dropped so that he could find employees, essentially. Because the people that he could attract for the low prices he was trying to pay as an hourly rate, they couldn't pass the test. And so he tried to get the test eliminated. And for me, you have to pass, like it's not a requirement, but you have to pass the test or else you can't work. That's just a Blue Duck standard. So it's not a state standard, although the Blue Duck standard is much higher. So you still have to pass the test for me or else you can't work here. And then once you get through a year of fertilization, then we will train you on pest control. Pest control is a whole other bag of worms, and it's much more complicated than lawn care. And so once you get through that, you've proven that, then we will spend the time to train you on pest control. So that's kind of how the field is. And I honestly don't know how often or when they do the training. I couldn't tell you that. But this year, we had been through some salespeople. We had been through CSRs. And I decided that I was going to sit in the sales manager seat, the office manager seat this year, and really dig in and dive into the training, figure out what's wrong with the processes, rebuild those processes this year. And then going into next year, we would hire a couple people to sit in those roles after I had a chance to refine them and get all the SOPs written and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the evolution of where we are with training.
Yeah, high level, I mean, that strategy's there. It makes a lot of sense. Sort of test them out, make sure they're going to stick around, and then you'll be able to invest in them. I know one of the big challenges with hiring is you bring someone in, you invest all that time up front, and then they don't pan out. I'm pulling this number from somewhere in my memory, but I feel like it was something like the average cost of hiring someone is like $3,000 to $5,000. So
yeah, it's a lot of money.
You burn through that guy in a month, and like, all right, well, on to the next one, and then you just So I like that. I like that process a lot.
Well, I mean, knock on wood, we don't really have a hard time recruiting people.
That's good.
Typically, we get a lot of applicants for our jobs. And so we have a big pool of people that we can typically choose from. We have people that walk into our office and they say, "Oh, we've seen your brand, we've seen your videos, we want to work for you." We've had 2 people from other competitors literally pull, like while they are on the competitor's route, like they are on the clock for the competitor, pull into our warehouse and ask us if we are hiring. Like while they're on the clock for the other person. And I'm like, "Sorry, man, like we don't have any spots open right now." So like we don't really have a whole lot of problems like finding good people.
That's good stuff. I know in other conversations that we've had, we've talked a little bit about recruiting and stuff. So maybe we'll have to do a round two on recruiting because I think you've got some good ideas around that stuff. One thing I want to go back to though, uh, when we were talking about phasing the services out, you'd mentioned that like you might not send the marketing out, but you'd still get some calls and you'd say, hey, we don't do that anymore. Check out these guys instead, but we're doing this now. Well, when it came down to choosing that other guy, so like say I'll use mowing as the example, right? You eliminate mowing, someone's looking a niche down and they stop doing mowing. How, how much effort and like I guess what's the process look like for selecting that person you're going to refer to? Because you probably don't want to just refer them to anyone, right? Like you probably want to make sure that it's someone who's going to take care of this customer. You don't want to give a bad recommendation because that'll look bad on you. Did you have like strategic partnerships in place for that? Just how did that work for you?
So the guy who took it over, I had known him for years, so I knew his character and the quality of his work. But at the end of the day, so going back to when I worked at Xerox, it was all business to business, development. And so uh, starting this company, this was the first time I ever did business to consumer sales. And so I always thought about marketing totally different. Like business to business marketing and sales is much different than business to consumer marketing and sales. And so I was always into this joint venture and like strategic partnership type mentality. Like, how can I work with another partner company, refer them work that we don't do, and then we do all of the fertilization we control, all the pest control for these companies. And we have probably a dozen of them around all of our service areas that we refer to for various things. Irrigation guys, tree guys, landscapers, people that mow, all these things. Like all these different services. We have people to send them, and so um, this person, they already had properties with us that we were fertilizing. They were already sending us work, and so it just made sense for us to have them take over all of our mowing stuff because they were already supporting us. And so I didn't want to just send it to anybody. Um, if you were fertilizing, I didn't necessarily want to. I'm not going to give you my client list, because I want somebody that's going to help us out at the same time. So selfishly, I'm going to support people who are going to support me. So we will only send mowing and landscaping and any of those type of referrals. We will only send them to people who send us fertilization. But if you don't want to send us any work, we won't send you any work. And we have a pretty good sized brand now in Indianapolis. So there's a number of people that want to work with us. And you just like, if you won't send us stuff, we won't send you stuff. We're not just going to send you mowing leads if you're not going to send stuff out for us either. So we do ask them that when we partner up, like, hey, why don't you send an email out to your database, letting them know that they have you guys can provide fertilization services through us now. So then now we can get everything streamlined under one account. And a lot of these people we partner with, they never offered fertilization services. And so if they don't offer fertilization services, well, those customers that they have are probably looking for fertilization services. So what if they hire another company that does fertilization services and they happen to mow and they happen to do mulch and they happen to do, they're probably going to lose that client, And so that's why it makes sense for them to partner with us. So now they can be a full service landscape company. Everything is under one roof. So it makes a lot of sense to partner, or we will come alongside a commercial landscape company and we'll be overflow for them. So let's say they have 4 fertilization technicians. Maybe they just tuck on another 1,000,000 square feet of turf because they want a big bid. Well, you can't really hire a quarter of a person. So instead of hiring a quarter of a person or hiring somebody that you can only keep busy for 10 hours a week or a month, or 1 week a month, why don't you just sub it out to us until you sell enough work that you can hire another technician and then you bring it back in the house. So we'll play as an overflow agent for other companies. Or We will just be their entire fertilization department. So that's how we've worked it.
Yeah, that helps me understand. I was curious how, I guess, the tactical elements of it. We talked about fact finding, so I just had to drill down into that one.
Yeah, it's been huge for us. I mean, we have one partner company that has like 75 properties with us this
Wow.
year.
Yeah, that's quite a few.
It's great, and I like those to acquire those customers don't really cost me any money. Like I could go out and spend $125 to acquire a client of my own, or I could partner with this company, give them a slight discount, and acquire them essentially for nothing. The average, so if you really want to break down into the numbers, I could spend $125 to acquire my own customer, $125 to $150 to acquire a customer. Or I could give a partner company a 10% discount. So a 10% discount on average is $7 per treatment. And so we do 7 treatments a year. So 7 times 7, that's how much their discount would be a year. And an average lawn care client is only a client for 3 seasons, maybe not even 3 seasons. So I have to have that customer for over 3 years before I start losing money on having a partnership. So the chance of them churning out after 3 years is a greater probability, and I will have saved the money by partnering with other companies than had I gone out and acquired that customer on my own. So it makes more sense financially for me to go partner with other companies than it is to spend my own money on marketing.
I love how you have the numbers. Like, just that's such a big differentiator between like a successful entrepreneur and then somebody who's still trying to figure it out, is like they haven't figured the numbers out yet. So I just love that you're able to sit down and be like, here's this, and then just spit it out, and super awesome to actually see in action.
But a lot of people don't think about that because they've never been in the business to business development world. That's where I came from. So for me to go and partner with other companies to make these deals, that's natural to me. I cannot stand sitting in an office making calls all day long. Like I can do it. I'm good at it, but I don't like doing it. I don't like doing it. You know, I'm good at it, but I don't like doing it. So I would much rather spend my time taking somebody out to coffee, seeing how I can partner with them. Like we have this big irrigation company in town. They have like several thousand clients. And they hate their previous provider because they just sold to private equity. They're looking for a new provider. So it's cool. I'm going to go train their 23 technicians on how to sell fertilization weed control. And at the end of, at the beginning of next season, we're going to send out emails to both companies, to both of our client bases, like, hey, you should use this irrigation company because they're great. And then he's going to say, hey, you should use this fertilization company because they're great. And here's why. So I just got a free marketing email to 2,000 people that you know how much money I would have to spend to get in front of those people organically?
A lot of money. And
it cost me, it cost me a coffee. It cost me like a $7 coffee.
That's a force multiplier right there. Absolutely.
So that stuff is way more exciting to me. Like I like that stuff. So next year, that's what I'm going to be doing all year long.
It's coffees everywhere.
Yeah, I'll take anybody out to coffee or lunch, whatever. You want to go to dinner? Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's super cool. Since niching down, how has customer satisfaction changed?
Man, it's night and day. Because like I said earlier, as you have all of these services, your CSRs have to be that much better when you have all of these services. And so I can train my CSRs on the science behind lawn care now. And if you do this, this is going to happen. We're seeing this in the weather, so this is going to happen. And so they truly understand how the ecosystem works and how this happens, this is the result. When this happens, this is the result. And so you did this, and so they can have these higher level conversations and actually explain things to people on the phone, as opposed to if you have all these different services, they don't really understand how all these services interact and all the little nuances. So we have one CSR in our office. We have one CSR that's remote in another state. Then we have an overseas virtual assistant. And the person in Wisconsin that's moving down here, she used to live here, and she used to work in our office before she went back to school. So she's working part-time with us. But the CSR that's in our office, she did ride-alongs with the technicians also as part of her training. So she went out to the field for like 2 or 3 days just to understand, hey, this is what it looks like when we pull up to a job. This is how we talk to the customer. This is how we actually do the service. This is how we fill up our machines. This is how we do all of this stuff. So then when she's talking on the phone to somebody, she actually knows what she's talking about. And so as a customer, you talk to her and you're like, yeah, this person really knows what they're talking about. And so their satisfaction rises tremendously. Our cancellation rate this year has dropped dramatically. When we send out dispatch notifications now, it says, hey, we're going to be out in the next 48 hours. There's a video of me in that dispatch notification that says, hey, this is what we're putting down. This is what you should expect on your lawn. This is what the weather's like. This is what you should. So now we're getting out in front of all of the customer complaints potentially, which they weren't complaints. They just didn't know any better. So now we're getting out in front of them from this video and an education standpoint, the dispatch email. And then when they do call in, our customer service reps, they know how to answer these calls. So like if we start getting a bunch of phone calls, we will have a training like, hey, we're starting to get calls on this, this, and this. This is how you answer this call. This is how you answer this, and this is how you answer this. So now they're all empowered to be able to answer these questions, as opposed to most companies, they're just kind of left out on an island and figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
Employees don't want to live in that kind of environment.
No.
Like, they want to know how to answer. They don't want to look like a fool on the phone.
Yeah, there's something to that, especially like when you reach out to a company for some kind of service, whether it's lawn care or anything else, really. Like when you're talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about, you can tell, right? In
Yeah.
the same way you can kind of tell something's an AI, like you can tell if someone like really understands what they're talking about.
Which is kind of funny because our content that we put on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, everything that is AI voice generated performs way better than I do. So
Does it really? Oh man, I wanted to. You mentioned that like they get the emails, like the dispatch notifications, and it's a video of you and you're in there explaining it. That is a really really cool idea. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's super super sweet.
And that's not to plug Service Autopilot, but that's a benefit of Service Autopilot because we demoed a lot of different softwares. And I've been with Service Autopilot for a long time, but most of the other softwares you can't customize. It's here's what you get, and this is all you can do. And in Service Autopilot, like you can customize so much in the software. So like my estimate, like there's the biggest competitor to SA for fertilization. You can't customize any of that. So if you go out and you get 5 estimates, I could tell you probably 4 of those other customers or companies use that other software, and every single one of those estimates look exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the logo at the top. And then here's our estimate, and it looks completely different. And they're like, wow, this company's a little different. Maybe we should use it. And look at all the reviews, So it helps you stand out a ton.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the endorsement, man. Really do.
He only paid me $50 for that one.
Oh, we did? Okay. Alyssa must have slid you that under the table.
Oh man, just kidding.
No, I appreciate that. We're getting a little closer to the end here, so I want to shift gears and maybe ask some questions that I guess are going to be a little more directly applicable for somebody who is maybe looking to niche down on their services. So let's start there. What would you say to a business owner maybe who's intimidated by the idea of reducing their offering?
Well, one, I would ask them why. Like, why is this? Like, maybe that's their business model. Maybe they want to do everything, and there's not necessarily that doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. Everybody can build their business however they want. But I would ask them why. Why are they not open to it, for one? And so that might uncover some other things. Like maybe their passion is in the seller service. That's totally fine. But then I would ask them to start naming what are the biggest frustrations in their business. And once you start listing that, because every business, like no business is perfect, every business on the outside looks great. What you present to the customer is great, and on the inside, it's very messy. And so then I would ask them, like, hey, okay, so what are your biggest challenges? What are your biggest frustrations with the business? And it's probably all going to revert back to the things that we talked about. And um, the way that it was presented to me at the time it was presented to me about focusing on three services, and that it just for whatever reason in that moment it sunk in. It's kind of like that idea of, your parents could have told you something over and over and over again, and then this other person comes out and they say like the same thing, but they say it a little bit different, and you're just like, that makes total sense, even though your parents have been saying it this way for years. But it's just like that other, maybe it was a coach or something, and they just said it in a slightly different way that connected with you. And it was at that time of your life that you were just like, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now. And so I think that's kind of what happened to me. Like like he just said it at the right moment, at the right time, when shit was hitting the fan, and it just made sense. And I drank the Kool-Aid, and I was like, we're all in on this thing, you know. So I think
cool.
it's part of that. But yeah, I want to know, like, hey man, what is your goals? What is your goals? What frustrates you the most? And then we can start making the case of, hey, maybe we should start scaling back some of these services. Maybe you don't really need to be doing this thing over here. Maybe there's a better way to do this. But they have to be open to listening. They have to be open to wanting it. They have to, had to beat their head against the wall so many times where they're like, yeah, you know what? I don't like beating my head against the wall. Maybe there's another way.
It takes a while to learn that lesson, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's end on this note here. If someone, after listening to our talk today, has decided that, you know what, I want to investigate niching down, what's a small step that they could do to start streamlining their services without necessarily risking a ton?
I would start with two things. I would pull a report out of Service Autopilot that shows every single service that you do and how much revenue you made that year in that service. It's a very simple report to pull. It's one of the canned reports, and it'll tell you, we did this service, it generated this much money. All right, so you're gonna have this whole list. Print it out and highlight the ones that don't make any sense, like you only made a little bit of money on it. And then go back to your team and ask them, what services do you hate the most? What services do you love the most, and why? And is there a service that you guys do that you have the most turnover with, employee-wise? Because that will be a big factor. Like, if you have a service that people just hate doing, and you're constantly training, and you're constantly having turnover, like, that just erodes profits. And so, is that headache worth that service? Could you potentially sub that service out to somebody else? Maybe it's a make or break thing. Maybe it's mowing, and you're a big HOA commercial contractor and you have to mow. Like, that's a different story, But maybe there's a different solution to this problem. So I would start with that. Write down every single service that you do. Highlight the ones that you really don't like, the ones that you don't sell very well, the ones that aren't, very profitable. And then secondly, ask your team, which services do you hate? Like, our guys hated plowing snow. They hated doing leaf removal. Like, cool. Those are easy ones to get rid of. Bye. We didn't do a whole lot of profit in them anyways. It was something to keep them busy, but then we found Christmas lights. Cool. So now we do Christmas lights, and I fly all over the country now and train people how to do Christmas lights every single year. It's one of the most fun things that I do, is training other companies how to install Christmas lights, because it empowers them to get rid of some of the services they don't like doing. And when you go out and do Christmas lights for a customer, like, they are happy. Like, there's almost nothing you can do during Christmas light season. When people are festive, they're in the mood, and you put Christmas lights, like, they're just happy, So it's a great service, especially at that time of year where it's kind of getting colder and rainy, and it's gloomier, and like, all you do is just have wonderful clients that are super happy. That's where I would start. It's like, what services do you hate? Because eventually you're going to have to get all of your teammates on board with this thing. So if you pull them into the mix and ask them what they don't like doing, that's going to be pretty eye-opening.
I think that's wonderful advice. And I think the timing's working out because I think they just decided to start remodeling the apartment below me. I don't know if you can hear it on the recording.
Again,
Well, okay, thank God. Hopefully it doesn't stick. But Matt, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today. I very much appreciate it. Is there any way that somebody could find more of you or anything, these things that you guys do?
man, we're all over social media. Just look up Blue Duck Lawn Care. You'll find us on social media. Reach out, drop comments. We put out tons and tons of content. You can reach out to me, shoot me an email, Matt at Blue Duck Lawn Care. I'd be more than happy to chat with people. I enjoy talking and helping people. So if I can be an assistance to anybody that's watching, I would love to.
Beautiful. Well, again, Matt, thank you so much for jumping on. I very much appreciate having you here.
Yeah, you bet.